Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Every single messenger that was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sent with a miracle which would allow the people to recognize that this was a messenger sent by Allah. For example, all of you are aware, likely, that Musa alayhi salam had a staff, and one of the miraculous features of that staff was that if he threw it, it would become a serpent. And this was his miracle, which allowed people to be able to verify his claim that he was sent by Allah. This is just one example. All the prophets, according to our tradition, were sent with some type of miracle or another, which allowed the people to recognize them. At the same time, every single one of those messengers' miracles passed away with the passing of the messenger. I don't think there's anybody in this room that can claim that they've seen the staff of Musa alayhi salam. When Musa alayhi salam passed, his miracle passed with him. And again, this was the case of all the prophets. The only exception is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was given many miracles. However, the greatest miracle was that he was given the Quran. And the miracle of our deen is the Quran and the fact that it has been preserved exactly the way it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, in a narration, the Prophet ﷺ mentions that every messenger was given a miracle. And his miracle was revelation. The miracle of the Prophet ﷺ was revelation. And then he mentions an interesting statement after this. He says, and because his miracle is lasting, because his miracle is going to last until the end of time, we have that same miracle with us today. He has hope that his community will be the greatest in number on the Day of Judgment. Meaning, we can interact with the same Quran that the Prophet ﷺ recited to the companions, and the same Quran that the companions recited to the people that came after them. The same book. And not only has it been preserved, but its effects have been preserved. Meaning, it's the word of Allah, and if a person opens it and begins to read it, and begins to study it and understand it and bring it into their lives, it will change them. It will change the people around them. And honestly, look through the history, look through world history. Anybody who's studied world history will know that this book changes the geography of the entire earth. Read world history. Read what's happened over the last 1400 years since the Quran was revealed to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, and look at all the great unique empires that have arisen because of the Quran. It's the power of the Quran that makes us who we are. Because we have the opportunity to connect with the word of Allah, and the word of Allah is exceedingly powerful. When it comes into the heart, it changes the heart. When it comes into the heart, it grows into fruits, and those fruits become a person's character. And when people interact with that character, they are completely mesmerized by the person who truly submits to the Quran. In fact, we know that one of the descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ was that his character was the Quran walking on the earth. His character was the Quran walking on the earth. And any person who spends time with this Quran, reads this Quran, reorients their life based on the message of this Quran, it changes them in every single dimension of their lives. And what happens is that people then interact with them, and they wonder, how did these people become this way? And that attracts them to the Quran. So this is a responsibility upon all of us. to appreciate that the miracle of Islam is with us today. Now, this miracle of Islam wasn't so that we can just, make a few frames in our homes and write some of the verses of the Quran. Or you'll see sometimes people even have the entire Quran in tiny, tiny script and they put it up in their homes. That wasn't the purpose of this miracle. The purpose of this miracle wasn't that we have this book which sits on our shelves and we just simply look at it and it's just one more book sitting next to the next one. It's never been cracked open. The miracle of the Quran is that a person recites it. And when they recite it, it affects their heart. It changes their life. It elevates them from the base animal desires that are present within us into this very, very high state of being true worshipers and servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that, because of the power of that Quran to do that, it changes the way we behave. It changes where we place our energy and effort. It changes the goals that we have for ourselves in this life. And it takes us to the gates of Jannah in the hereafter. That's the miracle of the Quran. The same Quran, the effect of the Quran that it had upon the companions, that same opportunity is available for me and you today. That's the miracle. And I mean, how do you find 1.3 billion Muslims on the planet? That's the miracle of the Quran. Anybody who engages it the way it should be engaged, who falls in love with it, who makes it their companion, who recites it, reads it, understands it, engages with it, reflects upon it, it elevates them. And it turns them into one of the most unique human beings on the planet. And as a consequence of that, it emanates its power to all the people that they engage with. So this miracle of our deen, it demands from us a few important features. Number one, that we recite it. We have to recite it. It doesn't, it's like somebody once gave me an example. They said, imagine you go to the doctor and doctor, I have a cough. Doctor, I have a cough. Can you please write me a prescription? So the doctor says, okay, I'll write you a prescription. Here it is. Go and get the medicine. 1 month later, the patient comes back. He says, my cough is the same. So the doctor says, did you take the medicine? No, I just put the prescription in my pocket. I never got the medicine. I never took it. It's not my fault. It's your fault. The power of the prescription was not in the paper. It was in the taking of the medicine. So in the same way, if we put the Quran on our shelves, then we haven't taken the medicine, we've simply looked at the prescription. It's our responsibility to spend a little bit of time every single day to reading the Quran. Honestly, even if we don't understand it in its Arabic language, it will still benefit us. Of course, we should make an effort to understand it, but even if we don't understand it, it still benefits us. That's the first responsibility. Second responsibility is to understand what this Quran is saying to us. To understand the message that it's guiding us towards, to the world view, to understanding what is the reality of this world and what's coming in the next. Where have I come from? What am I doing here? And where am I headed? These are the three big topics of the Quran. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? Where am I headed? Who's overseeing all of this, which is Allah. So the second responsibility is to understand it, to inculcate it, to reflect on it, to act upon it, to let it be a guide for us. And the third responsibility is that once we do that, we then stand before humanity and allow them to be able to see the effects of this great book. Now, the vast majority of the world will never read the Quran. Why would some random, sometimes you see people like to do da'wah, they just want to hand out as many Qurans as possible. And I'm not saying that that isn't a mechanism of da'wah. I grant you that that could be a theoretical mechanism of da'wah. But the vast majority of people are not going to read Quran. The vast majority of people are going to read us. They're going to read us. They're going to see how we behave. They're going to see what type of worldview do we have. They're going to see how we spend our time. How do we speak? When they see that nobody else in the world talks as softly and gently as this group of people. Nobody else in the world shows as much love as this group of people. Nobody else in the world shows as much concern for me as this group of people. Then they will say, oh, wait a minute, but the reason that these people are like this is because they stand on the bedrock of the Quran. That's how Islam spreads throughout the world. Islam doesn't spread through a bunch of pamphlets. Islam doesn't spread because we handed people a bunch of things and said, read this. Don't look at me. Just read this. This is actually what should be happening. No, they're going to read us. When I engage with my neighbor, they're reading me. When I engage with the people at my work, they're reading me. When I walk down the hallway at my high school, they're reading me. And people are looking. People feel the need. Everyone is looking for something. People are looking for peace. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for love. Even if they don't know they're looking because Allah has created every human being to seek and desire something above and beyond themselves. If you leave a person hungry, they'll look for food. If you leave a person empty, they will look for spirituality. It's human nature. And where are they going to turn? Well, if they don't see the example of the Muslims with the Quran, then they'll have a million places to turn. But if we were to read the Quran, engage with the Quran, inculcate the Quran, let the Quran elevate us and guide us, the world would be a very different place today. I know, we like to look at everybody and say, you did this and they do that, and look how these people are and look how that people are. That's not the problem. The problem is not that. The problem is us. We haven't set the example. We haven't brought this Quran into our lives. We haven't spent the time reciting it, learning it, studying it, sitting in the company of the people who have inculcated it. If we do that, then you can make a claim against the rest of the world. But right now, the claim is against us. And that's exactly what the Prophet ﷺ is mentioning in this narration that's on the screen. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Quran hujjatun lak aw alik. The Quran is going to be evidence for you or against you. How so? Number one, the Quran contains guidance for mankind. It establishes the principle by which humans should behave. Either we act in accordance with it or we act against its mandates. If we act in accordance with it, on the day of judgment, it will stand and claim that we behaved in this and this way. And if we act against it, it will testify against us. And number two, it will be evidence for us or against us if we don't give it its due right of reading and enacting it. Like the doctor can say, your prescription is an evidence against you. I wrote you the prescription. You didn't fill it. The prescription is an evidence against you. So in the same way, we have a prescription, but it's not a prescription for a cough. It's a prescription for the problems and ailments of our heart, of our lives, of the need that we have to be, beyond the animalistic nature that's present within us. And the challenge is on our shoulders. So in this month of Ramadan, which really, one of the major features of Ramadan, it's the month in which the Quran was revealed. Everybody knows this. This is the Quran itself is telling us, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. The month of Ramadan, the special feature of which is that the Quran was revealed within it. So this month of fasting is a month in which we begin to peel away the things that have distracted us. My food distracts me. My regular daily routine distracts me. My drink distracts me. I'm now resetting myself. And the next thing, once a person begins to peel away all those distractions, the next place to turn is the Quran. Because that's the miracle of this month. That's the miracle of this month. And as we begin to remove ourselves from, liberate ourselves from our desires, because our desires have held us hostage for 11 months. I'm just chasing this desire and chasing that desire. I'm, running on this feed, running on that feed, reading this, reading that. This is the month to put away everything and make a commitment to the Quran. Doesn't need to be very big. Make a simple commitment to the Quran and spend some time with it. Honestly, 10 minutes a day will fill the requirement. 10, 15 minutes every day. But this is the time to make that commitment. To say to yourselves or to say to ourselves, okay, that's it. Every day from Maghrib, right after I pray Maghrib, I'm going to spend 15 minutes reading the Quran. And then look at the effect that it has upon us. Not only in this month, but for the other 11 months. Honestly, Ramadan is a celebration for the one who's prepared themselves more than anyone else. And how have they prepared themselves? By spending the past 11 months with the Quran. They're the ones who are enjoying this the most. When everybody comes and listens to the Quran, the one who enjoys it the most is probably the one who's reciting because they've spent 11 months preparing. And then it's probably the others here who have spent some time with the Quran. They hear things, they remember things, they recognize things, they appreciate certain features of the Quran. That is available. It's a party. This is like the grand ball. This is the grand ball. You know, like the fairy tales, they talk about the ball and the princess. This is the grand ball. This is the grand ball of Islam. And every one of us has this opportunity. So we should make a commitment today. We should make a commitment today that maybe I'm going to improve my recitation of Quran. Maybe if I don't know how to recite the letters properly, I'm going to spend some time learning how to recite the letters properly. Maybe I'm going to improve my tajweed. Maybe I'm going to spend a little bit of time learning about the meanings of the Quran. Even a simple commitment like once a week, once a month, you can decide. But even the smallest commitment with an intention will take you very, very far because that's the miracle of this book. A minimal commitment to it will elevate you far beyond what you can imagine. So again, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, as was narrated in the book of Imam Muslim, which is on the screen here, Al-Quran, the Quran, hujjatul lak, is an evidence against you. It's a evidence for you, or alayk, or against you. So we want that this Quran be an evidence for us. That it comes on the Day of Judgment and says we lived according to it. That it comes on the Day of Judgment and said we guided others by it. That it comes on the Day of Judgment and says we made a companion of it. Ask ourselves the question, how much time do we spend reading things? How much time do we spend watching TikTok? How much time do we spend reading text? How much time do we spend reading the daily news or reading all of these other things out there? And how much time do we spend with the Quran? Everything that we read and see and do, these are all the words of people. People come and go. But we have an opportunity to engage with the word of Allah, the creator of the universe. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who are able to appreciate the beautiful opportunity that He's given us, the beautiful blessing that He's given us of His words. And may He make us amongst those who make a commitment to it. May He make us amongst those who regularly engage with it, and may He allow it to elevate us and to become models of His deen, and through that, to allow others within the community to be able to receive its wonderful message. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.